I'm gonna do some composition today, but I gotta get my other aspects of the stream going here and get my chat set. The stuff I normally do behind my start screen. I gotta do that stuff. And let's see if we can get this whole crazy thing going here. Sometimes things get going. There we go. Live space is happening. And let's get the Facebook chat set up. Facebook chat. Let's see if we can get everything to connect correctly here. And I had that big problem the other day with my chat where I got someone hosted or rated on Kick.com and I didn't know it. And there was a whole bunch of chatting going on. It wasn't coming through. So I've got myself set up so it's much easier to double check that my chats are working correctly. And hopefully that will help out. Okay, what am I looking for here? Connection, that's what we're looking for. Facebook. On Facebook, you have to paste in the actual live stream video web URL, which changes on every stream. So that's one of the things that's definitely nice to have the little start screen for. I never do my start screen when I'm not doing an actual performance style. Okay, so this should hopefully do some stuff. Should be reconnecting there, and that should bring everything up. So hello out there. What's going on in Mad Poet Land? So composition time. What are we compositioning today? We're working on, I've got this file that I've been using during composition streams that I've been using for a while. And it's just basically 4 albums all in one big file. And I will break them up later when it's time to do so. It's been a very fun thing to just kind of work, just have all, and basically I saw like right now I'm concurrently composing albums 67 through 70. And I've got at least a little bit written from each of those. And then these albums will just kind of go out whenever. And I feel like some of these should have singing on them. So we'll see. I'm still up in the air about the whole Randy Sings thing. I've been continuing to work on my singing and overall still feel like I'm making reasonable progress, which is great. Yeah, it's good stuff. Checking my chats, getting things in order. So yeah, so the 4 albums thing, let's throw some sheet music up on the screen here. Boom. This is my 4 albums thing. I think I'm gonna fiddle today with a piece called The Pharaoh's Judgment. And this is one of the ones that I feel like probably should have lyrics in it. All of this may end up being instrumental. That's all, like I said, just completely up in the air. I do feel like I'm making reasonable progress on my vocals. And okay, now I'm just seeing that both of the Facebook pages did not connect. No trouble. I can fiddle with that as well. Let's get, and yeah, the sheep chat that I've been using, it's really good in a lot of ways, but there are definitely some glitches in it. It's better than any other solution that I have found by far. And it's just always a struggle when you are multi-streaming. How do you get your chats to work? And as many platforms as I stream out to, which is pretty significant, every platform you add on just makes it harder. It's kind of unfortunate, but that's part of the challenge that we hopefully rise to. Yeah, okay, where's... Oh, that's not it. Let's get down. Boom, there we go. And I use Sheep Chat, and then for the ones that I can't get to work in Sheep Chat, I use a browser called Vivaldi. And Vivaldi is kind of cool because you can tile your tabs. So instead of having each tab as an individual window, you can have like 4, 5, 9, whatever tabs show up tiled, like all over, or you can tile them different ways. So that's really great. So I can just get up to, like right now, I need to see the Facebook chats and live space, so I can put those into one window and they'll both show up, which is great. So let's tile those. Boom. There, now I can see both of those. And that should work out great. Oh, well, that's a good sign. I've been trying to figure out how to be able to see my followers and stuff. And I'm able to see people who join the chat and unjoin the chat, which that's not a concern. But for some reason, those show up and the followers don't. But I just saw that I thought that the joining and leaving chat only worked on Twitch, but I see that is now also working on Trovo. So that's great. So if you happen to be tuning in from Trovo, welcome. Thank you. I don't normally get people on Trovo, so that's actually really awesome. And I've only gone on the Trovo platform. Well, I stream on there all the time, but I've never spent much time on there looking at other streamers and stuff. But it seems like a pretty cool setup. And, generally speaking, I like all of the platforms that I stream out to. Some of them I'll get activity on, but I don't ever get much in the way of chatting. I know like Nono Live is a Chinese platform. Nemo is a Vietnamese platform. And so we don't get a lot of interaction. Oh, great question. Andrew Coatsworth coming in from YouTube. What style of vocals would best suit your music, do you think? Hetfield, Mustaine, Dickinson, Rick Emmett, Boston? Oh, man, who was the guy that sang for Boston? He was so good. Brad Delp, I think his name was. That's a tough one. And that's something that I've been really working with as I practice my vocals. So I'm writing 2 albums right now. One is called The Thief of Time, and the other is called Tokyo Sunrise. Tokyo is Tokio. It's a small former town here in Washington State that actually burned to the ground in 1998. Brush fire came through and wiped it out, and then they never rebuilt. And all that's left there is just these grain silos. And we were out hunting one morning, Sarah and I. Sun's coming up, and I see the Tokyo silos off in the distance. And I said, Tokyo Sunrise, what a great title for an album. And so anyway, both of those albums, Thief of Time and Tokyo Sunrise, I plan to sing on. And those, the style I'm going for there, if you're familiar with a gentleman named Justin Sullivan, he's a singer for New Model Army. And his solo work, particularly the album Navigating by the Stars, if I were to lay out my top 10 favorite albums right now, Navigating by the Stars would have to be on there. It's so good. So that's kind of the style I'm going for on those. And that is a kind of lighter rock, almost a bit of a pop sensibility. I wouldn't call it pop music, but it's great stuff. And I feel like my vocals as they're set up are kind of like Josh Turner and Oh, there's another. Josh Turner is a country singer. And there's another country singer I'm thinking of, Alan someone. Anyway, that kind of country style, almost I feel is like what my vocals are well suited to. And so like the songs that I've been practicing to, a little bit of Camelot, Sailorman's Hymn, Abandoned. I feel like there was one other Camelot tune in there I've been practicing to. I practiced to the song Fever by Peggy Lee. And I have a few of my own songs in there that are my lighter work, some of the stuff off The Thief of Time. So that is where I kind of feel like my vocals sit. So I kind of want to, and I will address the full question here. And so I don't know how I can incorporate that into what I'm going for in something like Pharaoh's Judgment. Because this, okay, so let me play a little of this. And so this is a work in progress. This is, I'm skipping the intro. So that's a bit of the second part of the intro there. This is where lyrics would start. And so like on something like that, I almost feel like the vocalist Papa Emeritus from Ghost would really suit this particular song. I don't know if that's necessarily a great representation of what I would be going for though. And so I just started listening to an album called Shadows and Signs by an artist that goes by Apollinaire, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. It's great, and she is awesome. And one of the things that's interesting about my development with my vocals is I find that I'm actually very strongly influenced by female singers. And one of the things that led me to start being able to sing on pitch was I was listening to For Selena and Sin, not a very well-known band. Annika Jolonken, I think is her name, and she is amazing. And when I don't know if this statement will make sense, but when I started to sing like a female, not that females and males definitely sing differently, and I wasn't singing at higher ranges, I just kind of tried to sing like her. And suddenly things started clicking for me. And a few things kind of clicked in my mind about why that was. It's a little hard to explain. Just knocking stuff over under my desk here. Pardon me. So this really led me in that direction. And I feel like the reason I'm bringing all this up is I feel like what I would like to have, though I don't know if it's going to work, is kind of a more elegant style of vocal where, now I'm not familiar with Rick Emmett, so I don't know what that vocal style is, but like the style of Dickinson and Brad Delp from Boston, there are some similarities there. And really you could draw a pretty close line to operatic styling. And in fact, I've seen people talking about particularly Dickinson, and I mean, he rivals any operatic vocalist out there. His technique is just unimpeachable. And he's kind of right on the border, I think, of that kind of elegance, but he's also very powerful. So I feel like I would go for something more in that range. Definitely clean vocals. Interestingly, though, I'm not a big fan of... Oh, Triumph. Gotcha. Okay, totally understood. Gotcha. Thank you very much. I'm not a big fan of metal albums that have heavy reliance on growling vocals. In bands I've worked with in the past, I have done growling vocals, and I do fare with those. I'm a decent growler. I wouldn't say I'm great. Like this guy Tony I used to work with, he was he was great at the growls. I do pretty well with that. So I could see getting some growls in there and then having some of the more elegant style kind of male vocals. But I don't know if elegant is necessarily the right word, because it definitely, when you listen to For Selena and Sin or Apollinaire, you definitely hear this elegance in the way these women sing. And it's wonderful. I just really like both of them. And the Apollinaire, I've only been listening to like for a month. And I've been listening to it on my runs. I've probably run 40, 45 miles listening to her album now. Totally digging it. So I feel like that's what I'm going for. Now, your ultimate question is, what would best suit the music? And I might even have to say Michael Artfeldt of Opeth might be the right kind of an answer there. I feel like his particularly his clean vocals. I feel like Artfeldt's clean vocals might suit my music fairly well. And I don't know that my vocal style would fit with that. So it's a big struggle. And there's another interesting thing. So I've done a few test recordings, and recently, probably a month back or so, I did a test recording of one of my own songs called The Song of the Long Sky. And it's one of the ones I practice to on a regular basis. And I was pretty happy with it. It came out good, and it was just, demo stuff. It's not something I would put out, but there's this emotive thing that my entire life I have been a bad singer. And I don't find any shame in that. There are things we're all bad at, like you probably wouldn't want me to teach people how to surf. Why? I've never surfed. I would be a bad surfer. No shame there. But when you spend, because I'm 52 now, and I really, through For Selena and Sin, I started getting these kind of singing revelations when I was 47. So it's been about 5 years. But you'll do this demo. You demo out your own vocal, and you listen to it, and you're like, okay, that's actually pretty good. And then 5 minutes later, when you're not listening to it, you start questioning it. Because, wait, that can't be good. I'm not a good singer. Right? So it's almost like you have this identity of being a bad singer. And so there's this very difficult emotive transition of being able to say, I'm willing to do this. Even if it sounds good, do I want anyone else to hear this? Because I'm a bad singer. It's kind of a wonky place to be. And it's, I'm a pretty confident person. I've can just walk up to strangers and talk to them if I need to. That's fine. Like when I asked Sarah out the first time, it's like, oh, okay, there's Sarah. I'm gonna go ask her out. But you get these places in your life where you're like, ooh, man, that's a tough one. So yeah, I think maybe Artfeldt would be a decent answer for suiting that, and possibly if I were to look at my own vocalization capacities, maybe a slightly deeper version of that might be something that I end up going for. And then how that fits into my music, that's another question. It might be that I only end up singing on lighter albums. I don't know. So, a lot of questions there. And one thing, I love singing. So almost every day, usually for at least 20 minutes, just often closer to 30 or 40 minutes, I've got a set of, I think it's 15 songs by myself, Chris Isaak, Bowie. I even got a Taylor Swift song in there. And I'll just sing through those every night. And it's after Sarah goes to bed, so she's not bothered by it or anything. And it's just me down here, and it's such a blast. It's really fun to do. So I really hope that I can get these to start happening on some albums. I think that would be a really great next step for me. And I've released 66 instrumental albums. I'm currently working on more instrumental albums. There's nothing wrong with a change here. I've done 66 metal albums. There's nothing wrong with putting out some lighter albums. I would like to do some country albums. I feel like that kind of Josh Turner, Alan Jackson, that's who I was thinking of. Alan Jackson, Johnny Cash style country. I love that stuff. Love singing the Weeknd songs, Blinding Lights. Yeah, absolutely. You know, and that's, I'm the kind of person that I just like music. So, I mean, I'll go from listening to Slayer to, you know, Peggy Lee to Dr. Dre, and I love it all. You know, it's just bring the music, baby. One thing I was doing last summer out on my runs is I was catching up on a lot of my old school rap. And like, I've always kind of liked NWA, but I never really, you know, kind of took them to the listening lap. So I'd go out for these 5-6 mile runs. And I got to tell you, man, that first NWA album, Straight Outta Compton, that is seminal. Man, that album is so solid. And it just, you know, kind of makes me think about, you know, when people try to belittle rap. And it's like, have you ever really spent the time listening to it? Because there's some good stuff out there. Anyway, let's work on the Pharaoh's Judgment. And so I'm gonna, let's see, what do we got here? That's not what I want to do. Get this sheet music in order. So in this area here, I'm gonna want to, I think I'm gonna put an organ in here. I open it with a guitar, and then an organ kind of fades in. And I've got this great pipe organ that I use on this stuff that's so awesome. So let's pull up my organ tracks and get those. There we go. And so, of course, the first thing I do with composition is, you know, make sure I know what key I'm in. This is an E minor. So that's where we start. And so basically I've got this string section going where I've got these kind of punctuated violin, and then the viola and the viola and cello drawn out notes. And this one too, because of, you know, just the title of it, The Pharaoh's Judgment, I kind of wanted to go for a more, you know, kind of what I think of as an Egyptian style of a sound. So use some certain devices with the guitars, you know, certain notes out of key to help with. And I feel like I ended up somewhere between Creeping Death by Metallica and Circe by Ghost, which I'm pretty pleased with. And so, just kind of thinking here, how am I going to want to approach pulling in those? And I'm just making sure that I know what's going on with my chat here. So thank you for your patience. Okay, let me pull up one other thing. Then we're going to start putting some serious notes in here. All right. Boom. All right, so like going from one instrument to another. And this is one of the things I do with like a piece like this. You know, when we just listen to this as a rock ensemble, we don't really think of this as being very dynamic. And what I mean by dynamic is, volume-wise, this is just kind of doing the same thing. It doesn't get louder or quieter. It's like there we have a change of pace. We don't actually change the tempo, but the drums have picked up, going from a halftime feel to a straight time feel. But another way that I really like to change the dynamic feel of a piece of music is with the use of different instruments. So changing from strings up to an organ, that's a really good change of feel. So if we kind of feel how this, and even though again these are going to be pretty much the same approximation of volume level once they get into a full mix, that change of timbre being the way a particular instrument sounds. So a guitar and a harp, both stringed instruments, both plucked, they sound very different. So those have a different timbre. Your voice and my voice sound different. We have a different vocal timbre. And so yeah, moving into a different timbre, that can be another way to add dynamicism to your composition. It's something I really like to do. So now we'll start to look at in a place like this, bring this in a little closer. So this, from here to here, is based entirely on an E minor chord. And so we have an E, a G, and a B. So those are the notes. That's basically the recipe for an E minor chord. And then here we go to if we include the bass, now we have an F sharp. Excuse me, am I looking at this correctly? I am not looking at this correctly. We have a B minor chord, and then we go to a C sharp minor chord on these two. I was thinking that I was looking at that wrong. I've actually got the 5. A chord is made up of the first, third, and fifth notes of a scale. So I've actually got the 5th note on the bottom of these. So it's in the bass. It's known as an inverted chord. So going from an E minor to a B minor to a C sharp minor. Now I don't necessarily have to change the chord I don't have to change the chord on the organ every single time. So I can basically ask the question, how does this E, so I've basically put an E minor dyad here. I only have the 1 and the 3, the E and the G note. So I can say, well, now how do those relate to the B minor chord? Well, the G is a 3rd below the root. The E is a 6th below the root. So it would work fairly well. It would give a little different flavor to it. And also this is going to be a very transient chord because it only lasts for an 8th note. The E is going to be the 6 of the C sharp minor, and the B would be kind of like a 7. So this would kind of be like an add 13 chord here, and this one would be, so we got the B, be kind of like an add 11 chord in this case, and so the G, so it'd be kind of like so 2 different 13 chords, and that can be a really nice kind of flavor there. And that passed by so quickly we hardly even heard it. Let me put this into a different kind of format here so we can see these a little better. Where are we at here, kids? All right. And so something like that, as transient as those are and as congruent as those notes would be with those chords, I'm probably just going to go with an E minor chord through this. And then on beat 1 of the next measure, we have changed the chord there. So here we would have a D sharp minor in the guitar, but then what we've got in the bass. Okay, so that'll be the 3 in this case. So yeah, so we just have a D sharp minor. So we're basically going from a B minor, C sharp minor, D sharp minor, and then we go right back to, we go to an E power chord on this part, and that, even though it's an E power chord, the implication of the minor is still there because of the key that we're in. So even though we're not using the G note, the implication is still there. And then we have an inverted C power chord here, and this is an example where you got these notes here that are out of key, technically speaking. And nothing wrong with out of key notes. In fact, they add the kind of flavor that I want in this type of a scenario. But that adds a layer of caution of, how does that affect, sometimes just because the out of key notes, I will use something in my chord. So here, what I might do is change just one of these, and I'm going to add to these notes as well. So here I think I'm going to add an octave onto the E to give a little more oomph to this. And I think what I might do is I'm gonna make this a double dotted half. And sometimes using the double dotted notes could be a little frowned upon in sheet music. For the half notes, in a case like this, I feel it's obvious enough that you're just hitting the 8th note. But the reason that double dotted notes can be frowned upon is because it can be harder to count them. Because this is basically saying you've got a half note plus a quarter note plus an 8th note. And so this, a better way to do this, might be to do a half note and then tie it to your quarter note and then do like a dotted quarter note. Technically this might be a better way to do it here. And the reason that could be technically better is that you see where the half of the measure is at. This is the start of a new half note. So sometimes I use the double dotted note, sometimes I don't. Single dotteds are much less frowned upon. Some people here would even tie additionally to an 8th note. But I kind of feel like a change on, and we're gonna get a little bit of syncopation kind of thing going here, where I want to basically have the organ not hit on beat 1 here. So this I might just make into a whole note and hold that across, because that's just the E holding down the root. And now what I'd like to do is find some kind of an idea here where I can have a note or 2 notes, preferably, that are going to be congruent with both of these chords. And this is hard because these chords don't share notes. So like right now, this C sharp is going to become the minor 7 of the D. But now what was the 3 here is going to become the 2 over here. So what I could potentially do is move this up to a 4 or an 11, and then that would be the 3 of the next one, except that I did something wrong. Let's actually move these to the correct spot so that they will be giving us what we need here. Okay. And again, this is going to be transient enough. Sometimes you can get some pretty wonky dissonances going just due to transients. So basically, I'm going to have the 7 and the 3 here. I'm going to have the 1 and the 4 here. And then I could go back to, let's see. And what else do I want to do here? Let's put the 5 in there. And I think I'm going to have to turn this into multiple voices. This is going to be a little contrapuntal in nature, I think, when I get done with it. And I love me some counterpoints, so that doesn't hurt my feelings. My program locked up there for a moment. But I'm thinking maybe do... Oh, this thing's taking its sweet time here today. That's okay. I'm not in a hurry, little computer. Okay, there we got that. Thinking maybe drop this down to the root. Actually, maybe putting that on the 9, bring this down to the root. That could sound kind of cool. Leave that 5 rumbling across there. How does that just sound as an organ piece? Yeah, that kind of hits harshly, but that might be good for this. Let's see how that sits in with the rock ensemble. It goes by so quickly that I feel like I kind of like that quick little dissonance. Kind of want to draw it out a little bit longer. So that's where we're working with multiple voices. Hey, my awesome daughter is here. Thanks for coming in, Miss Renee. Hey, my parents are down visiting her, so tell Grandma and Grandpa hi if they happen to be watching along with you. And great to see you. I hope you're doing awesome. I heard that Mom and Dad, I'm looking at the wrong camera here. Mom and Dad had some trouble sending me a text, but Sarah forwarded it to me. That was a super cute picture of you with Grandma and Grandpa out there down in Texas. Hope you're doing awesome. Thanks very much for coming in. Oh, they just took off. Okay, they're leaving in the morning. Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's been a long time since you guys have seen each other too. I'm glad that they had a chance to get out there and yeah, because you guys haven't seen each other since pre-pandemic times. So, but yeah, thanks for stopping in. Hope you are doing just super awesome. All right, so this, I'm going to do that and make that a, let me get back on where you guys can see the sheet music. I said we had a blast. We just, how hot is it down there in Texas these days? You're probably roasting down there. I feel like one of these notes is cutting off. I feel like I'm only hearing an eighth note here. And I should be hearing more than that. Let me pull out voice 2 and see what's going on. Okay, that's good. You're in a heat wave, going to be 106 for a few days. Oh, that's a, whew. Yeah. We usually out here in Eastern Washington, we'll usually get, it'll be later in the summer, we'll usually get a period for about a week and a half to 2 weeks where we get up in that range. And that's brutal heat, man. There are certainly hotter places in the world, but that is toasty. We got up the highest we've gotten up here since we moved out to Eastern Washington is 116, and we definitely had the air conditioning running that day. Okay, I guess it's just a quick transition. Okay, it's all there. Okay, we're feeling good here. And I'm just popping around in my various chats because I just really don't want a repeat of like last week where a bunch of people were talking on Kick.com and I was unable to see it. I was a little bummed about that. But I'm pretty sure it's working correctly right now. And it does appear to be. So that's a good thing. All right. So yeah, we're getting contrapuntal here. And the idea behind counterpoint, for those who may be not music theory geeks like myself, the concept of counterpoint is that you have multiple melodic lines that are interacting. You have multiple melodic lines that are interacting harmonically. A lot of times, and I find this when, particularly with students who aren't very far in music theory, a lot of people, they know the words harmony and melody, but they don't really know what they mean, even a lot of musicians. And the definitions are fairly simple. A melody is a series of notes one after the other. A harmony are notes played together, chords. So that's, harmonization is putting these things together. So in counterpoint, you have melody lines that if you play them individually, should stand alone as a melody line. And they should also work together harmonically. And so it's a very interesting thing. And it's not, a super popular thing these days. Palestrina and Bach were kind of the masters of counterpoint. And they obviously were great at it. And I enjoy writing contrapuntally. I find that when I write for string sections and for choirs, which, in my case, synth choirs, I find in those cases, I generally use 4-part writing. Four-part writing is what we would normally think of as the classical music sounds. When you hear a lot of film scores, movie soundtracks, that's often four-part writing, unless it's some sort of like a jazzy thing or whatever. And, a lot of just classical music. And then you have your contrapuntal stuff. And so I find writing for string sections and choirs, I'm often writing more four-part writing. And when I do my synths and my organs, I'm more inclined to write contrapuntally. And it just kind of seems to be what works for me. So that's what I do. We got memories coming in from YouTube. Welcome, memories. Hope you are doing awesome. We're working on a song here called The Pharaoh's Judgment off of an unknown album. This is just a bunch of music that I'm writing for future use. And as I was saying earlier, hopefully this particular song will have vocals on it eventually. Now, as I said, these first two measures, with these kind of transient other chords, largely what we're seeing here is just based around the E minor chord. Now here, this last half of this measure is based on a D chord. And in this case, even though, again, we don't have, I guess we do have we have the 3 in the bass, so we don't just have the implication, but we do have a full D major chord in this case with the F sharp note. Got my coffee, also got my water. So there, the last half is that, but then here we have our D sharp minor, we have a G minor and G major and an A minor in this. So this is kind of flopping chords all over the place here. And of course the D sharp is out of key. And so that would essentially what we're looking at here when we're looking at this D sharp, which we also have here, and we have a C sharp. What we're doing is we are raising the 6th note and the 7th note of the scale in this case. Now we see other places up here where I'm raising the A sharp, which would be the 4th note of the scale. And any note of the scale can be modified to a different position. That's just, these are the things where a lot of times when people think about music theory, they think, I don't want to learn music theory because it's all a bunch of rules. I won't be able to do the stuff I normally do. Well, you totally can. These, you should really think of these as guidelines, not rules. And so, if we look at this, I'm basically borrowing ideas from, so if you, okay, how do I want to say it? So if you raise the 7th note of a scale, of a minor scale, in this case, we're in E minor. If we raise the 7th note, that becomes what's known as a harmonic minor. And the harmonic minor is sometimes problematic because it gives us an augmented second interval between the 6th and 7th notes, which we can then rectify by raising the 6th note. And it becomes known as a melodic minor. We call it a harmonic minor with the raised 7th note because we're more likely to use this in a harmonic format. And melodically, we often find that the augmented second interval is musically problematic. Doesn't mean you can't use it. It's just composers tend to show a preference for not using it. At least, yeah, again, a preference. We can find these instances of using the augmented second. Or we can find ways to use it harmonically to a minor third. And if this stuff doesn't make sense, that's okay. Anyone who's ever seen me do a composition stream before knows that I just basically sit here and geek out about music theory, speaking in what to most people is probably code. And that's totally all right if this doesn't make sense to you. So if we raise the 7th note, we get a harmonic minor. If we raise the 6th note as well, we get a melodic minor. If we raise the 6th note without raising the 7th note, we get what's known as a different mode, which we call a Dorian mode. Now, if we've raised both the 6 and the 7, and then we also raise the 4, then we get what's known as a Hungarian minor. And the Hungarian minor has consecutive half steps, which in our standard scale construction in music theory, we typically avoid consecutive half steps. Now, putting the 4 in this case doesn't mean I have to do that. So here I'm not using consecutive half steps because I actually go from the sharp 4 straight up to the 6. So I'm skipping the 5. So I'm basically using that as a whole step instead of I am using that. Totally looking at this wrong. The 4 to the 5. Yeah, so I'm going from 4 to the 5, so I'm using it as a half step. I don't use the 6. So I don't have that consecutive half step being problematic. And it's not necessarily problematic either, because again, one of the big things that I think a lot of people struggle with in music theory is that everything you do is based on context. And so if your context calls for consecutive half steps, use consecutive half steps. If your context calls for an augmented second, use an augmented second. And if someone comes in and they just want to be all pedantic about how this stuff works, tough. I don't care. All right. So I'm going to compose some more music here. Let's try that. Sometimes what I'll do if I'm kind of not sure where to go musically is I'll just drop some notes in here based off of what I did and see where it leads me. Now these I know I need to move down to a D note because I actually brought in the 5. And then I'll often do just this. I'll start to simplify it. So basically here I've got a series of roots. So these are all by root, I mean, the word root is more commonly used in reference to a chord, and the word tonic more in reference to a scale. So, or a key, you might say. A scale and a key are not necessarily synonymous, though they're often used synonymously. So I'm kind of looking for how can I look at this as a chord? And sometimes changing positions can help. So we don't really have a chord here, but if we look at like this whole position, this quarter note, even though technically I'm going from an E to a G major, an E minor to a G major, the 1 and the 3 of the G major are the 3 and the 5 of the E minor. So I can say that whole thing is just an E right there. Cool, no problem. Here I have a D sharp. And so what I could kind of do is I could say, okay, D sharp. That is the major 7 of the E minor. So I could say, okay, well, we got this D sharp here. We have an F sharp here. That would be like the 9 of the E minor. I could probably make this whole thing into some kind of a weird like E minor major 7 chord. And this could work pretty well. This could be an 11, E minor major 7 add 11. How would that chord sound? So I got E minor major 7. Mysterious sounding, kind of cool. May or may not be good. And that's the experimentation we do. So what I'm thinking is I might move this D sharp up here. And then what this is going to allow me to do is have this half step move, because we're basically going from a D sharp to a D. So I'm going to exploit that D sharp to get a half step move. So I'm basically going from an E, D sharp, D. Oh, look at that. Consecutive half steps. Boom. And it's not even going to be that part of the scale, right? So you can find ways to do this kind of stuff. And anytime you're adding in out of key notes, it's rife for flavoring things up like this. Now I might move this down here to an E. So I might, I wanted that to still be, I wanted that on a D, not an E. So what I might do here is move this up to the F sharp. So we got the 3 going in there. So we've got the 3 of the D chord now. That works. I'm going to bump up the volume on, and for some reason there's a key bind to open up the mixer of Control-Alt-M, and for some reason it is only working on some files lately. I have no idea why that would be, but that's been a bit funky of its own. All right, so what do we got? Where's my mixer? Mixer, there we go, mixer. I'm just gonna turn that organ up a bit so we can get a little more reference volume here. Just gonna throw this mixer over in another monitor. All right, let's hear this. That I am digging. I am digging that. Okay, so now I do want to be a little more robust. Let's turn these into voice 2. Basically, by working with multiple voices, it allows you to have, for example, here I've got a whole note versus 2 half notes. And so that could be a really nice thing in multiple voices, and they're often colored like this. And, you know, and here with counterpoint too, like here I've got a little busier over, you know, in this area, a little more sparse in this. It still totally works as counterpoint. That can be a nice way to add in a bit of dynamic nature to what you're doing with a piece of counterpoint. Is longer notes, shorter notes, you know, the rhythmic aspect of this. As we talk about, the drums definitely get faster. So if we just listen to the drums here, so they definitely speed up in that area. Got Memory says Dracula's bath theme. Dude, that is awesome. I would love to be the composer who writes the theme for Dracula to take a bath to. The Count from Sesame Street was always my favorite character. Definitely. So we got a D sharp. So now here, I want to play with these ideas that we've got going on here. So we're basically going from an E and a D sharp. So I want to find a note that's going to work. If I put this on an A, that's going to be the 4 of my E, which is going to be represented up here on the A note. It's going to be the 5 of my D. Where can I put this? Because sometimes it's really nice to not have what are known as block chords. So in a block chord, you would have, there's a chord, there's a chord. And so those just hit all together. So if I want this to not be a block chord, I could take this note and have it hold over like this, and then when this second green chord plays, the first chord is still playing. And that can work a lot better to make kind of a smoother transition. So here, this does not count as a block chord because I have this playing underneath it. When I switch from this measure to this measure, I do have a block chord right now. So I may end up finding a way to tie some other note across and play with it that way. But I do want to try to find a note here. I may have to go to 2 notes here, but I want to find something that'll kind of work well with both of them. I like the Dracula icon there, Memories. That's awesome. Oh, what do we got? You know what I think I'm going to do here? I'm going to switch, just because I do want to keep an eye on my chat. I basically got one hidden chat window that's kind of a backup. I'm going to move that over my broadcast software. That'll be easier for me to see if something happens in it. Cool. All right. Rock and roll. Okay, and thank you all again for my patience with just wanting to make my chat stuff work. So the E note is going to work here. So that E note, actually, I could possibly just hold that E note across like this, and I could do both of those. And then that would be a 9 of the D note. That 9 works there. I think I could roll with that. But I could go to, because I still got this holding across, and I can maybe turn this into a half note, bring this down to a 6. Like that, get a little bit of second species going there. Ooh, that might work well. I think I'm kind of digging that. And in fact, since that's a C note, well, yeah, and I think I'm gonna leave it with the C because I do have a C chord here. Yeah, I'll leave that. That'll work. And that's going to be, yeah, the 6. Okay. So we get the 6 and the 7 represented and the 4 on that. And then my whole note will hold across here. And let's bring something in here. So I definitely don't want another D natural because then I would just have 3. Well, no, because I've got the 3 here. That'd be a 5. Now, often I don't like to go that close together down here, so I may flip those. I like that, except I think I do want to invert these. To invert a chord, makes me think about Lestat's Sonata in Interview with the Vampire. I have never seen that movie. I didn't like the books. I probably should watch the movie because I've heard that they're great, but I really wanted to like those books, but Anne Rice's writing style just doesn't work for me. It's one of the few books that really happened to me on. So basically, to invert a chord, you take the lowest note and you move it up an octave. That's a very basic form of inversion. There are other ways of doing it. But yeah, Memories, I love the sound of this organ. This is the Leeds Town Hall organ, which is a free download. And you just have to type LEEDS, Leeds Town Hall. I think you need the contact player for it. They might have it in more than one version. That sounds kind of mean. And I know Susan, my friend Susan, would like this because she is a big fan of these kind of chromatic lines, consecutive half steps. But yeah, I'm using preset 5 on the Leeds Town Hall organ, and it sounds so good. They nailed the sampling on that. Yes, digging it. So let's, so now we got a C here. And in E minor, the C chord would in fact be major. Now, in this case, this is the kind of place where sometimes we play with things as well. And this might be a very useful place for what's known as an altered mediant or submediant. So in E minor, if E is the number 1, E, F, G, A, B, C, C is a 6. The 6 is known as a submediant in music theory. And altering the quality or position of the mediant or the submediant can really do a lot to change the feel of a piece of music. Tom Cruise is kind of the reason I would like to see that movie. And I know that Anne Rice herself was initially upset with the choice of Tom Cruise. She wanted Rutger Hauer to play Lestat. And I really like Rutger Hauer also. He's done some awesome stuff. I feel like Tom Cruise was a good choice, and I heard that after she saw the film that she changed her mind. And apparently Tom Cruise was very happy that he was able to do a good enough job to change her mind on that. So basically what we're looking at is if we want to do an altered submediant, there are multiple ways to alter your mediants and submediants. You can change their quality, or you can change their position. So in this case, we would have a major chord in the minor position. So your 6 would be a minor 6. And the way to think about your 6s, this sound right here is a minor 6. We use this all the time in metal. And it's an awesome sound. So that is the sound of a minor 6. The way I think of a major 6 is more of that bluesy kind of Chuck Berry feel. Much more upbeat feel to it. And I'm going to experiment with both of you. So basically the chord that I'm playing, that is a minor 6. That's the position of the chord. The chord itself is major. Get some of that distortion off there. So I'm going to try first changing that from a major chord to a minor chord, but leave it in the same position. I could also change the position of it and make it either a major or minor chord. So basically with your mediant or your submediant, you can use the mathematically assigned chord, or you can use either of the other 3. So you change it from a major to a minor or vice versa, or you change its position from the minor position to the major position or vice versa. And then that chord you can have either be a major or a minor. And these all tend to work, but basically the mediants in a scale determine whether the scale is major or minor. The submediant implies whether the scale is major or minor. And so you can really do a lot with implying something different with your mediants and submediants. It takes a lot of practice to really make sense of this stuff. Okay, so I'm basically right now I'm just going for a C there. And now, the 3 of the C is an E, and now this is where also music theory can get a little bit weird. Renee says, I'm not getting great service, but it was great to hear your voice for a while. Love you, Dad. Love you too, kid. I keep looking at the wrong camera because that's when I look at it when I'm doing shows. Totally great to hear from you. I'll give you a call later. I want to talk to you. If you're still listening, I'm planning to do all 3 asemic writings. And so the third one, as you know, of course, is dedicated to you. It'll be the first time ever playing that live. So I want to talk to you and find a time where you will be able to see it. Because I don't want to play that song live without you having the option of seeing it. So I don't want to play it while you're at work or something. So we'll talk soon and try to find a time that will work for you to watch that. I've never played, obviously, all three of those in a row if I've never played the third one before. So yeah, we'll talk soon. Hope you're doing awesome and have a great day. Okay, so here, what we're going to be listening to is a C major chord. What day? I don't even know what day yet. I haven't even decided what week I'm going to do it. So feel free to check your schedule out for like a couple of weeks, and if you have a good day, let me know. Because I can pretty easily schedule around your stuff. Probably more easily than you can schedule around me. Cool, yeah, I'll shoot you a text later on. Okay, so if we make this E into an E flat, then we will have a C minor. Notice how that sounds a little more sinister. That C major sounds a little more resolved and final, but the C minor, oops, didn't do that right. And that's where I'm feeling like this altered submediant into the minor might be a good feel here. That is pretty sinister sounding. Let's pull that back to a natural. Try it again. Yeah, I am digging the altered submediant here. Really, really digging that. Okay, yeah, that is definitely going to be an E flat. So we got our C minor, and let's turn that into voice 2. Bring that up there, and you know, maybe doing a 7 here. So we're on a B. So that would be a minor major 7. I feel like I would kind of want to go with I have to experiment with both of these. Ooh, that minor 7. Let's pull it back to a minor major 7 in C. Those both work, in my opinion. But I feel like the minor 7 is going to be there's just kind of a slight, oops, I want to get the correct one with the minor on it. Slightly more sinister. Let's hear just the thing. That sounds kind of vicious. Oh, so this is great too. Oh, this is great because I have the half steps here, then I'm also doing a half step up here. So that actually, anytime you move by a half step, there tends to be a bit of a sense of resolution, even though we're going to an unresolved chord. Oh, loving this. This is, yeah. Uh-huh. And now again, so here we've got block chords. At the measure, we got block chords. And it works, but sometimes I want to find a way to unblock a chord. And that's often something I'm going to shoot for. So here I can look. Now this can be kind of cool. So I could maybe go up to, well, what I could do here, it could be an anticipation. So I want this to still cross over here. So now I've still got this so that this is not a block chord. So I can put this in. So basically, if I make this a B flat here and tie that across, that's known as an anticipation. Basically, I'm anticipating what's going to happen in this next chord. Now, a lot of times your anticipation would not be a 7. You're more likely to do like a 4 that resolves to a 3 or a 2 that resolves to a 3. But it doesn't have to be. It's still the concept of anticipation is still there. I'm telling you a little bit about what's going to happen with that chord before we get there. Oh, I'm digging that. That is so saved. Absolutely digging that. Tasty. That is tasty. All right. Okay. Oh, yeah, I'm really glad I went to an organ here. And, I very typically use, obviously, a rock ensemble, drums, bass, and guitars. And then, commonly for what I think of as my orchestration, very commonly pianos, harpsichords, organs and strings, occasional synth choir. And I got a couple different things I'll do with synth choirs, a couple different types of feel for it. Some that are more realistic, some that are much more synth oriented. So for example, the opening to A Slow Descent into Madness off of Schizoid Paraphrenic, that's a fairly realistic sounding synth choir. And on the title track on the same album, Schizoid Paraphrenic, I used I think it's by DSK, the Choir Z, which is a rather synthy sounding synth choir and very appropriate for that song. It's still got the synth feel. So, you do all kinds of different stuff there. All right. So, I always kind of ask myself, what do I want to do here? And I thought about maybe going to a synth in this case, but I feel like the choir was absolutely the right thing to do in this. And, a little bit of an interesting bit of composition, because I always want to be cautious about when I'm using these out of key notes and how those relate to my scale, all of that kind of stuff. And here in particular, here I'm using this A sharp with an F natural. So I've got multiple out of key notes. And in the guitars, I really like the way that feels if we just do the rock ensemble. Yeah. And like I said earlier, when you move by a half step, and a half, again, for people who are not music theory geeks, moving by a half step is if you move one fret on a guitar, up or down, that is a half step. Move two frets, it's a whole step. If you're on a piano, you move by one key, from white key to a black key to a white key, whatever it is, one key to the next key is a half step. And it's kind of the basic unit of music. In the vast majority of music that we hear in what we think of as Western music, that's what that is. Certainly, there are plenty of places where you can move a different amount. So I can bend a note. So I've got a B and a C. Those are a half step apart, but I could intentionally bend that note so it doesn't get all the way to the C. So you can use gradations. But that's, if you think about a piano, a standard keyboard, the 12 notes that we have are all one half step apart. So typically when you have movement by a half step, it gives a sense of resolution. So here I've used two notes out of key and they both resolve by a half step. One resolves down, one resolves up. So my A sharp resolves to a B, my F resolves down to an E. But also, that really wasn't so much what I was thinking in this case of resolution, because in this case, we're so E-centric that the E is going to sound fairly resolved anyway. So this was really more about just getting new notes. We're flavoring things up. And a lot of my music is strictly in key, or what we would, in music theory geekery, we would refer to as diatonic music. And so I just write this stuff and use the notes from the scale. And there's a lot of great music written like that. In this particular song, Pharaoh's Judgment, I'm going for something very different. I want that kind of Egyptian. Basically, I want you to feel like you are being judged by some very powerful pharaoh. And how's that going to work out for us, right? That's what we're going for here. And also I want to say, if anyone might be a little new to the stream that we're doing here, this is not my standard type of stream. We're doing a composition stream today, and we're working on a song called The Pharaoh's Judgment. This is from a future album. I'm currently writing my 67th through 70th albums. Just recently released my 66th. And this is going to be for after that, and I don't know exactly where this will fall. But my normal shows are much more rock show oriented. Back behind me here, which you can kind of barely see today, I got my guitars hanging up, and there's some stage lights back here, and I'll usually fill the room up with my smoke machine and get the light show going. And so it's a little different than what we normally, I shouldn't say a little, this is very, very different than what we normally do. I do these occasional composition streams, and every once in a while I pull the computer up and I'll make a pizza or something, do a kitchen stream, or even an exercising stream. But most commonly I'm doing more of a concert style stream. So if this is not your thing, sitting here just geeking out on music theory, do come back again and check me out in other environs and see if maybe that's more to your style. But whoever you are, wherever you're coming in from, I'm streaming out to 14 different platforms right now. And, it's just a blast for me. So wherever you're coming in from, I do appreciate you being here. And if you are a music theory geek, or you just like listening to, kind of weird, fun stuff, maybe have a good time. We'll get Memories from YouTube says this format is cool too. Yeah, I do. I enjoy this. Well, I'm a music teacher for a living. Literally, this is what I do for a living. And a lot of my students are not advanced enough to really go deep like I'm doing here. But it's still, I love teaching. I have just as much fun teaching a person how to play, an E minor chord on a guitar, which is, very basic, as I do with, teaching, the hardcore, very intense music theory like I do with, like my student Susan, where we go deep on that stuff. Fat Hazard coming in from Kick.com. Welcome to the Mad Poet Show. Glad to have you here. Always a pleasure. Kick has been going really well for me lately. I've been getting a decent amount of people coming in on Kick. Fat Hazard, I don't believe I've seen you in our chat before, so welcome to the show, to the stream, to what have you. And I hope you're having a great time. Everyone out there, wherever you are, wherever you're doing it, whatever you're doing, do it well. I am the Mad Poet, for those who may not know. You are an audience. We are the Mad Poet Society. Welcome to it. So basically, in this measure 47 of this song, I've got this E minor thing going on, and then suddenly I have this A sharp power chord, which just doesn't fit anything. And this goes for 1.5 beats, so nearly half a measure. Even though it's just, 2 strums, this goes for nearly half a measure. So in something like this, kind of got to proceed with caution. May end up with some block chords going on here again. We'll see what happens with this. So a lot of times I'll start by just putting in, just basic chord and say, okay, let's just get the really basic stuff in here. So this is going to go for a quarter note, and then we're going to have this wonky A sharp chord. I'm just going to put that part of it in, and let me make sure I got this right. Yep, okay, and we're back to the E here. and not necessarily the best way to put that into sheet music format. That makes a little more sense. So we see the half note. Memories from YouTube says, I don't understand anything on screen, but it's interesting. And yeah, the stuff I'm talking about right now, for a person to really get this, you would need a fairly reasonable background, a fairly reasonable grounding in music theory. And kind of to understand your way around the intervals of the scales and that kind of information. This is not basic stuff. This is something, if like I said, my student Susan, she's been with me, I think, for at least 9 years. And she's advanced. We talk about stuff like this all the time. And it's one of the things about, Susan, her lessons are some of my favorite. Like I said, I love all my students. I love teaching my students, but it's like we're talking a foreign language, right? And it's so great because she gets this stuff and it fits. So that's always fun. But most students I don't go this deep with because they're just not going to be able to handle it. And like most students, I'm not even using multiple voices with. That gets a little on the advanced side. So I'm just putting that in. And Fat Hazard, I barely remember sheet music from band. Yeah, and that's, well, there's an interesting thing too. And this messes with people when they find this out. Most people were taught sheet music wrong. So when I'm saying all these numbers, what these numbers represent are intervals. An interval in music is the distance between two notes as measured in a scale. And so when we typically teach sheet music, what we teach people, let me get this in here, is that you can look at this. And so, okay, there's the spaces. And that's an F note, A, C, E. Oh, it spells face. And so that makes it easy to remember. This is how we teach. This is not right. This is important. You do need to know this. But it's only part of the story. And then we do this other thing where we say, this moves around quick when it's this big. We say, okay, well, here are all the lines, and these are E, G, B, D, E. F, E, G, B, D, F. And they say, every good boy deserves fudge. I don't know why good girls don't deserve fudge. Anyway, so they basically give you these mnemonic devices and allow you to memorize it. And then later on, they teach you about notes that are off the staff, all of that. And again, it is important to know that. But that's not how we actually read sheet music. And there have been some interesting studies done on this with saccadic eye movements and different types of measurements. And what they find is that when you're looking at sheet music, you don't look at this as an E note and a B note. You know that you're in an E minor scale, and you know that this is the root of the scale, and that's 5 notes above it in the scale. And so you're looking at it as a fifth, not as an E and a B. You can verify that by knowing it's an E and a B. And this can go into more depth, but a person reading sheet music would look at this and say, oh, that's a half step down from this, that's a half step up from this, and make the movement. So, yeah. So basically the way they teach sheet music is not the most robust way to teach sheet music. Okay, so let me kind of time what I'm doing here. So now we're playing with this very out of key chord, and I want to make this fit in with what I'm doing on the organ. The organ needs to fit what's going on. So this actually needs to be an F natural, and this needs to be a C sharp. Now, the music I'm doing is most likely never going to be played by an actual organist. So I can get away with anything here. I can write something that can't be played, and that works. However, I have I don't necessarily want to call it a rule, but a personal guideline that's I'm pretty stringent with. That when I create something for an instrument, I want a player of that instrument to be able to play it. That's actually kind of important to me that it work out that way. So what we have here is an interval of an 11th. We're going from a C sharp to an F. And this is all on the left-hand staff. What that means is, so this is an octave, 2 E notes. And they'd be moving down a third from this and up a second from this. Very few people can reasonably play from a C sharp to an F that's nearly an octave and a half. It's a huge, huge stretch. My hand is too small for that. And most people's hands would be. So this would be extremely difficult to play. So that's something I'm looking at right away. So right now, this obviously is going to match up with what's going on in the guitars simply because it's the exact same notes. Totally works. So now I start looking at this and be like, okay, well, how do I want to make this work so that it will actually work? So one thing I can do is I can start to change these. So I've got both of these notes in the guitar, so I can build other aspects of the chord. I don't have to have a C sharp here. I could put this on an E. And now this would be, so I could have this come across. This would be the 3 of my chord. I could just make that into a whole note. Goes along with my slightly contrapuntal stuff I'm doing back here. That 9, most people could reach. That's not too bad. From an E to an F, people with really small hands are going to struggle with that. I can hit a 9, and I've got very small hands for a dude. So that's potentially workable there. I got my octaves of E up to the 9, but I can take this further. I could put this in the right hand, up here somewhere, okay? And I can say, well, what if, instead of giving them a stretch of a 9, let's see, no, I'm gonna have to figure out what to do with this, but I could bring them down to a smaller stretch and add a little more color to this chord and kind of see what happens with it. So here, so my chord in this case is an A sharp, and I'd be going to a D. Might want to go to a D sharp. Let's see what that does. And it does go by pretty quick because this is a fairly high tempo piece of music. That kind of works. And then I'm thinking what I could do here is I don't want to triple up on my E notes. Bring this up to the 3. Ooh, you know what? Bring this to the 5. There we go. Now I don't got my block chord. Oh, that was a B flat. Okay, so that won't work. But that could be a half step move down. I could work with that. I could definitely work with that. Okay. Maybe just bring it to the 3 would be a little better. And then I could take this E, move it down to a C and add a 6 in, because that'd be the minor 6. That might work. And let's see how that works. That's actually pretty good. That I feel like I'm keeping the creepy feel going fairly well on that, and kind of making that happen. Cool. Digging it. Now there's a part of me too. So right now I'm using what's known as oblique motion and parallel motion. So we have here an E and a G. Those are apart by a third. In this case, it's a compound third, or technically a tenth. So this is also a third. This is also a third. Nothing wrong with consecutive thirds, but then those are moving obliquely against an E. So when you have, the voice one notes, the blue notes, are moving in similar motion. In this case, they're moving in parallel motion, which is a type of similar motion. They're moving exactly the same amount. And when you have one note stay the same and other notes move against it, that's oblique motion. I think I'm good here. I'm justifying this in my own mind because there's a part of me that really wanted to see some contrary motion here, but I don't think contrary motion is called for. I think the oblique motion is going to work with this. Let's make this voice 2. Let's go to the B natural here. And let's make this a half note. Okay, that could work well. So we're going to change that. So we got that. Let's move this to a C. Then we're going to end up matching that C down there and be slightly off. Oh, that could work well. We could be creepifying this real nicely, or I could just be totally screwing it up. That's also an option for us. No, I'm liking that. That is fairly creepy. I want to hear that just as the organ part. A solo organ is so awesome. Yeah, that works. Rhythmically, I'm kind of liking the rhythm here of hitting this on the half and then back to that eighth note. That's kind of working for me. I do feel like maybe I should do something here. We got this C note. We can just bring this up to the 3. Except, I altered the 3. Okay, so I was kind of thinking I want to tie that across. But that... yeah, because I don't want the E natural there. If I bring that to the 3... Let's just bring it to the 2. So we're going to get a bit of that 2/9 feel. And we're still going to get the block chord on measure 47, but we'll be climbing to it a little better. It's trying to save right now. This is locked up. This is why I save this so very, very often. Because the program locked up there for a moment. If this program shuts down, I don't want to lose any of my stuff because I like this composition. So I save, and I think I've told the story before. There are probably some people in chat who haven't heard the story. On my very first album, Confusion, I was working up at Riverside Studios in Granite Falls, Washington, over in Western Washington, probably about 50 miles north of Seattle. And I was working on Mental Floss, the last track on the album. I was there late at night, working overnight, only person in the studio. Put 4 hours, literally 4 hours of work into this song. And it was just mixing at this point. Everything had been recorded. It was all just production work. 4 hours, power goes out. I had not saved one single time. I have never made that mistake again. And I'm glad that I've never made that mistake again. Because that sucked. So I brought the system back up and then I started over. And it was quicker the second time, but I would rather not have done that work over because that sucked. So save often when you're working on your cool projects, please. Okay, let's hear this with the 9 in there. Yeah, I'm good with that. I feel like that C minor chord, altered submediant, was a little too steady And that can be good too. Sometimes it can be good to put that in. It would not have hurt the song to have that in there like that. Let's listen to this. Let's go 1, 2, 3. Let's write 2 more measures. And that will kind of bring us to the end of that particular phrase. And then we'll listen to all this. Okay. So now we go from an F sharp to an E. Now in this case, our F sharp being in the second position of the minor scale is going to be a diminished chord. And diminished, very harsh and dissonant. So this is a common place where I will possibly not use the 5th note of the chord because that's what makes it diminished. Or if I do use the 5th note, I may alter it. Now we may find that diminished works here. We may find that it doesn't. And so, experimentation. Now, but this is another good place to just grab the low notes here. Boom. And simplify life that way. So now I've got my F sharp and my E in place. And we can start making decisions off this. So let's move this to the 3 and this to the 5. So now this is what I was talking about earlier with contrary motion. So this right here is already going to be much more robust. And now something like that might even be good enough just to work with. Actually, yeah, I think this melody line on the top, on the right hand of the organ, is probably going to stay in place. And I'm getting a little bit of an idea of what I want to do here. And it's going to be, basically, the organist would have a lot of fun in this measure if this goes the way I want it to. So I can leave my roots there. Let's add in, so let's make these voice 2. Okay, I didn't think I could go any lower there. The red notes mean that they're out of the range of the instrument. Okay, so let's add notes to that, make them voice 1. I think what I might actually do here, give us a half note here, and so eliminate the block chord that way. You know what I could do here? I could move this up. Okay, so let's make this the F and this the A. There's an interesting thing going on where visually I'm kind of seeing this upper line move into this lower line, but that's still going to work sonically. That's going to be fine. I'm kind of thinking of these lines as crossing and having this big octave equivalency jump going on up here. But I think this is still going to work. And sometimes, you do something like this and you'll come back and you'll fiddle with the measure or measures before it to make things fit the way you need them to. And what we could actually do here, what if I did something like this, turn this into voice 2, I can bring so that's an E, so that's just the root of the chord. Maybe if we do, so what do we got here? So we want an E minor chord. I could just bring that to a G. Tie that. I think that's going to make the kind of the travel of the voices work a little better for me. Except, well, I brought that to an F. Okay, so we're getting kind of a 9 in there. F sharp, I should say. That major 9, that felt like it worked. Felt like that major 9 was okay in there. That almost sounds like it could be a Bach piece. That was maybe one of the most arrogant things I've ever said. Of course, I am so vain, I probably think that song is about me. So, I mean, you know, you gotta roll with what you got. All right, so this is working. It's kind of interesting. Might want to bring this up a little. So we got our C note there. So that was a 6. I was kind of liking the 6. What if I brought that to an E and made this a quarter note and put my 6 on the bottom end? That's getting vicious and brutal. And now I could take this to a B. Oh, too low, can't go. I could just leave that 6. I can make that 6 work. So I've got the 1 F sharp here, but it's only an 8th note. It's going to be very transient. So I'm just considering this an E minor measure. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to bump this up and I'm going to start to give a little right hand melody to our organist. And I need to actually get the right thing activated. There we go. Dr. Gack says he thinks I should try going an octave higher to K sharp. That's a tough note to hit for most players. So, hey, great to see you, Gack. Thanks for coming in. Hope you are doing well, my friend. Haven't seen you for a while. It was good to see you. I think I saw you came in a couple weeks ago and gave me a tip. Also, thank you. And great to see you back. And so here I'm getting into, you know, a lot of this stuff back here was kept a bit lower, basically because I don't want it to walk too hard over all of the other stuff that's going on. And sometimes I do end up going and bumping up things to a higher range. Don't make it to most early shows. Yeah, and my shows have been kind of all over the place lately. So, you know, I've been doing some starting at like 2 in the afternoon. I don't usually start much earlier than that. But I definitely have been doing earlier, because it used to be that I was playing at Fridays and I would always start at 8 o'clock. And the 8 o'clock position was always based on that was when I stopped teaching. So I got done with Susan's lesson, boom, start doing a show. And so now that I'm just kind of streaming whenever, it's just like, hey, whenever, you know, time-wise. So I don't really have any kind of consistent schedule. And, you know, whatever, you know. I hope people stop in when they can. That's really all it kind of comes down to. So here, basically, this is going to hopefully add a bit of flair. It's almost acting... I don't know if I'm saying this right. I'm using this in a similar fashion that one would use a drum fill. So we get a drum fill, and I'm actually realizing now that that should be one measure later where the drum fill is. Man, I'm a dork. What are we cooking up today? Rise from Kick.com. Another viewer that I don't think I've seen in chat before. Welcome. Yeah, we are working on metal today. Yeah, I haven't done my station identification lately. I am the Mad Poet, and you are an audience, and we are the Mad Poet Society. Welcome to it. So I do heavy metal. This is a song called The Pharaoh's Judgment, which is going to be on a future album. I have released, to date, I have released 66 full-length instrumental rock albums. And this is not a normal type of a stream for me. Normally I do more of a concert style stream. And if you haven't seen me before, I've got a bunch of stage lights behind me and stuff that are, of course, off right now. And so every once in a while I'll drop in and do these composition streams and just kind of geek out on music theory, which is always a blast. For me, it's a blast. Hopefully it's at least reasonably fun for others as well. But so I'm currently writing my 67th through 70th albums, and this file that I'm in right here is just it's just 4 albums that are going to be released in the future. And so yeah, it's pretty fun stuff. This song, The Pharaoh's Judgment, I've done some fairly interesting, in my opinion, music theory ideas. And you know, I'll tell you what we're going to do here. I'm going to change my kind of view on the sheet music here. I'm going to play this song and just kind of see how it sounds. And so I'm playing this, so you're going to hear me playing along with this synthetic. So let's see how I do with this. I haven't played this song for a while, so I don't know how well I'm going to do. And I think what I'm going to try to do, let's see, how am I going to do this? Yeah, I'm just gonna play along here. Let me get a little bit of the intro going. And you'll hear some instruments cutting in and out because this is an incomplete composition. But this has never been played in any live format before. I have played other songs kind of in this format where it's, you know, incomplete. But this would be my first performance of The Pharaoh's Judgment. So let's just see how this sounds. Let's see how I do on there's a few places in here where the guitar parts are a bit wonky. Like I said, I'm not practiced, so let's have some fun with this. Yenu Marley, I probably said your username wrong. My apologies. How long did it take me to get good? You know, I'm still working on it. So I've been playing guitar for almost 40 years. I'm 52. I started when I was 8, played for a couple years, stopped through my early teenager years, picked it up again when I was 17. And to get good, it would depend on how we define good. So I released my first album almost 20 years ago. So I've been playing for 20 years at that point. I started writing that album probably when I've been playing for about 6 years. And so, you know, there's different kind of levels of proficiency. I didn't become good at improvising until probably 15 years in. I didn't become really decent with composition, in my opinion, probably till about 10 years ago. Do I normally compose metal music? From Rise on Kick.com. Yes, metal is definitely my main thing. You can see back here I do have a couple of classical guitars hanging up. I love classical. I have composed a little bit for classical music. I have done a couple of small-time film scores, which are a little more classically oriented. And also, you know, within this, I tend to be, like right now, we've been writing this organ. So, you know, this is more kind of counterpoint style classical music that goes along with this. But metal is definitely my main thing. I am writing a couple of lighter albums right now. I was talking about earlier called The Thief of Time and Tokyo Sunrise that I hope to sing on. And my vocals are coming along. We'll see if anyone else ever hears those. But metal is, you know, really my love affair with heavy metal started when I was about 12 years old. And my older brother came over with his friend Chris. So Ron and Chris come over, and Chris had Iron Maiden's Number of the Beast on vinyl. So this would have been probably about 82, 83, probably 1983, not long after Number of the Beast came out. And we're listening to this, and we're all like looking at, if you know the album cover, it's really cool. And my dad's there, and Chris and Ron and I were all, and I'm, of course, the little kid in this scenario. But they played that title track, Number of the Beast, and it was just like, it just struck me so hard as to how cool that music is. And it's kind of wild. So that became my thing. Turtle Master Twitch. Thank you very much for following on Twitch and for joining the stream. I hope you are enjoying what you see here. As I said earlier, this is not my standard type of stream. I really enjoy the composition streams, but normally I'm doing more of a concert style thing, and it's a lot of fun. I got all my crazy lights going and stuff. And also I do want to put out there for people on other platforms. I'm streaming out to 14 platforms right now. I'm streaming out to Twitch, YouTube, 2 different Facebook pages, Trovo, Picardo, Nono, Kick, VK, DLive, Nemo, Vaughn TV, Africa TV, LiveSpace. I will only see if you have followed me or subscribed or whatever it is on the various platforms, become a fan. I will only see that on Twitch and on LiveSpace. And so my apologies if you have followed recently on Kick or YouTube or anything, then I didn't see that. I'm not ignoring that. I just don't see it. I've been trying to figure out how to get that so I can get those notifications. Haven't worked it out yet. So we're gonna do a little performance here of the Pharaoh's Judgment off of some upcoming album. We don't know when it will be. It will be after my 70th album. This will be my 71st album or later. Let's see let's see if I can play the Pharaoh's Judgment. This is gonna be fun. That part's hard. There's some tough stuff in here. No, I will need to practice this one a bit. That's kind of a tough piece. This is, what you heard there was very poorly played. But this is a fair kind of idea of the type of music that I do. Like I said, my first 66 albums that I've released have all, in fact, been instrumental albums, and vocals possibly someday. We'll see. Let's kind of jump back to our composition here. Let me throw the sheet music on the screen. And yeah, if anyone is new to the chat, feel free to chat away. Feel free to lurk. If you just kind of want to watch and see what's going on, feel free to ask questions about guitar playing, music theory, about my fancy haircut, whatever you got. we just have fun here. Okay, so yeah, we're composing this stuff contrapuntally, and I'm kind of building this up to have this kind of transitional thing with the right hand in the pipe organ. Yeah, mostly instrumentals, absolutely. Yeah, my first 66 albums are instrumental. I do have an EP that came in between my first and second albums called The Death Sonnets, and I do some growling on that, and I have some guest vocalists, and those are very cool. It's a demo piece, a demo EP, and eventually I would like to put out the full album of The Death Sonnets. I haven't finished writing it, but that will have singing all the way through, and even if I'm on there, I still need other singers for that one because it would be both male and female vocalists. So, yeah, kind of. So you can hear that if you go look it up, basically. Okay, wait. I still wanted some of these notes in here. So those I want back there. That I want here, and that was good. So I think I'm gonna maybe just do that. And I'm gonna take this. So the problem with working with like an F sharp to an E chord is there are no notes that are in both chords. So you kind of got, if you want a note to go across the whole thing, you kind of got to find a note that is going to work with both chords. And that's kind of what I'm looking for here on this measure. And so the C, I think, will probably do it for me right there, because the C is going to be the minor 6 of our E, and it's going to be the 5 of our F sharp. Maybe if I bring this from a C to a B. Yeah. Can work with that. And then we kind of have this climbing melody thing happening here. I'm going to change this around a little bit. So I kind of want this to just climb up to this upper right hand little 8th note melody going on here. Leave that on a B. Bring it up to the 7. 7 could work there. We're on the root here. No, we're not. We're on a C there. Okay, so let's actually, I kind of wanted that low, that C and the B might clash. How many instruments does this piece have? That's a great question. So let's take a look here. Oops, that wasn't what I wanted to do. It's got at least 4 or 5, at least 5, I think. Oh, I do need to do that. So let's see, we've got, sorry, my windows are a little wonky here. So in this, I have the drums, bass, and guitar. And so I'll have drums, bass, 2 guitars, and then I'll have a 3rd guitar, which is a clean tone. And then I use the pipe organ, and I use I think there might, oh no, I thought there was a synth, so pipe organ, and then violin, 2nd violin, viola, cello. So 10 instruments so far. And there's a possibility that I will put a synth in here in places as well. So we'll see what goes on with that. And that's not uncommon in my compositions, to use quite a few instruments. So my compositions will range anywhere from just your standard rock ensemble, drums, bass, guitars up to something like this. Like I know in like Fistful of Light off of my 65th album, one of my favorite songs of my own work, that one, so in that one I've got drums, bass, 3 guitars, the lead guitar. So drums, bass, 3 guitars, violin, 1 violin, 2, viola, cello, so your standard string section, French horn, tuba, trombone, and synth in that one. So like that would be an example of some of my more complex stuff. The instruments don't necessarily all go at the same time. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. And again, when I was talking about the very earliest part of this, I don't know what I just did. Uh-oh. Whew. That was exciting. When I was talking back at the very earliest parts of this, a lot of like when I change from, in this particular song, right here, I change from a string section to a organ. And that, even though a lot of times we talk about dynamics in music as being a change in volume, changing the feel, the texture, the timbre, the tempo, these are all types of dynamic changes that we can make in music and make it much more interesting. So we get the string section going. We'll change the feel with the organ. And at the same place, we also change the feel rhythmically in the drums. We're going from a half-time feel to a straight-time feel. And the guitars kind of pick up their pace a little bit. So we have the multiple kind of dynamic change. The tempo doesn't actually change, but it almost feels like the tempo changes with all of the change that's going on. And hopefully when we do this, we continue to make the piece of music remain reasonably cohesive with itself. We still want the piece to make sense unto itself. And typical instruments that I will use are not just those. I also commonly put in both piano and harpsichord. Those are fairly common instruments for me to put into my compositions. Yeah, so that's kind of that. Let's see how that D note is treating us in this measure. Actually, so that, just notice I got a D note here, so I'd be going from a D note to a D note, an octave apart. I don't know if that's what I want to do here. Nothing wrong with a move like that, but it can what something like that can do is it can kind of, I'm basically going for 4 voices in this case. So this could almost feel like, if I change the D note here to something else, if I went to the C note there, which I know I was liking the C note, See, then I'm just going to be doubling up on this C note. This is where, when I'm teaching counterpoint, this is the thing I talk about often, is counterpoint is kind of like putting together this weird puzzle that doesn't only have one solution. And sometimes you can really back yourself into a corner. And now, of course, as I've already said, music theory is not a set of rules, it's a set of guidelines. But one of the things I encourage people to do when they get to a higher level of using music theory is, sure, it's guidelines, but it's good for you to have your own set of rules as to how you are going to use those guidelines and to know when you're going to break those rules. So you've got your own rules and you've got ways of breaking your own rules. So one of these notes I don't want to be this. I can't move this here because I'm going to have just nothing but C notes at that point. Well, I'm also doubling up on a D note here, but that's pretty transient because it's just a little melody going on. Always fun questions. Always fun questions. So what are we going to do with this? Okay. See, moving this would make this whole measure a lot easier, but I feel like I want that low note kind of rumbling your brain around. Yeah, and I want that. I don't want this. I don't want... Maybe if I go to a B note all the way across here, so then we're just going to have the 5 of the chord, leave the C and the D here, oblique motion, contrary motion to the soprano voice. We still often refer to these with kind of anthropomorphized, soprano, alto, tenor, baritone. Moving it to a B would be doubling this. So basically, the reason we don't want to have too many of these doubling kind of things is you can lose your 4-voice concept. An A might work here. Let me hear this without the rock ensemble. No, not like an A. I may have to move the D note. I was kind of liking the way this line was just stepping down, which is why I liked the C note. Let's try that again. C, D. I'm going to roll with that for now. So now here, actually, now in this measure, we do have chords changing. Okay, so we've got a C and a B and an F sharp. So now so what I've got here is I've got the root and then the third of that chord and then the root again on that one. Okie doke. Let's turn those into voice 2. Bring voice 1 over. So the F sharp, I'm on the 1, the 3, 5. Probably not going to want octaves. I could do octaves there by... Because basically, we do double notes. Doubling notes is an important part of both 4-part writing and contrapuntal writing, because your standard chord is a chord of 3 notes. The 1, the 3, and the 5. The first, third, and fifth notes of a scale. And in 4-part writing, which even though this is contrapuntal, it is still in 4 parts, we're usually doubling one of those. The question is, where do we double them? See, because this here, just for that 8th note, we actually have a tripling of that voice. But what I could do is just move this to an F sharp. Okay, this gives me some ideas now. Okay, so what are we going to do here? go to a half note on a D. Then we're going to have the 9 of the C and the 3 of the B. However, I have to be cautious here because this is something I'd have to talk to my friend Stephanie, who's an actual pipe organ player, and say like, okay, could you do this with your right hand? Because she could probably, she's good. She is really good. But here, if I turn this into quarter notes, I just kind of got to watch where I'm going. So there I've got a 7. I can move that up to an actual C. Move that to an A. And that's going to be a 6, 7. Move this to a B, and then I'd be on the root of that. And we're hitting an octave 7. Okay. This might work. And we'll get to F sharp. And we're going F sharp, G. So the C would be the 5. This would not be for an organist who is faint of heart, that's for sure. Now, so we got a C and a B, C. Now what do we got here? I probably don't want F sharp, 7, 6. How does the 6 work there? Yeah. Okay, I think that's what I want. Let's listen to this whole section here. Kind of got an 8 measure section. Let's see what we got. It's busy. It's very busy. Now, so yeah, this might be too much for some people. This I'm okay with that. I'm okay with writing music that doesn't appeal. I mean, this song is not going to appeal to a large audience. This is not a pop song by any stretch of the imagination. This is definitely written more for prog metal style people. There's a part of me that almost thinks this is too busy, but I think it might be appropriate. And what I'm going to do now to offset that, first I want to hear what this organ just sounds like on its own. I may modify that a bit. I think that I should probably just turn something like this into a half note. Oh, not a whole note. Bring this up like to a G, an F sharp. Yeah. Let me try that as a half note. Maybe a G. That improves that measure. I may go through here and make some modifications in a few places and just kind of stretch a few notes out. But that one note, sometimes just changing one note can make such a difference. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to basically punctuate this. And what I refer to when I talk about punctuating music like this is I'm going to start putting some very significant pauses in. So I'm going to keep the organ going. And I'm going to do just a lot of kind of starting and stopping of the organ. So there we just got octaves. So I'm just going to hit an eighth note there. And let's bring this down to a B, so then we'll have the complete chord. So basically it's going to come up on this little melody and then it's going to stop. And then I'm just going to bring it in places and just kind of hit you with it here and there. And so, okay, so let's actually put this. Oops, whatever I just did not work. Oops, also oops. Oh, I see what I did wrong here. These need to be eighth notes. And then this will do what I want it to do. Okay. And then bring it over here, pull those out. So kind of where these chords are changing, I'm just going to hit us with it. But then I'm going to have to fiddle with these chords to make them work. So here we have a C sharp, no, D sharp minor. So I can bring this down to, so let's, okay. Bring this to an E, this to the C, D sharp. And let's see, then we're gonna need an F sharp. And why did I put, oh no, okay, that's F sharp there, C sharp, F sharp, and A. So we're gonna start it there. And then let's actually just pull this over and we can modify one little note, maybe two. And let's see, so now we're gonna put, instead of a D sharp, we're gonna have a D natural. And I should probably do an A sharp on this one, because that will be the perfect 5. I probably don't want a diminished 5. Let me hear the diminished 5. Actually, that, I think I'm just going to pull out, because that's hitting me too soon. I don't want it to hit that soon. Yes, this is the pace I want it to go at right here. I want to basically hit on, I think hitting on 1 and 3 might get me feeling the way we want this to feel. Okay, so here we got the D natural, A natural, that'll work. Yeah. And then, let's see, we're gonna go to, so here we have a C. Okay, so here I put a C diminished. Technically I've got a C augmented 4. Okay, I can work with that. I'll bring this down to a C. And so if I've got an augmented 4, what can I do with that? That would basically be hitting me in the Lydian. So if I think Lydian here, if I want, I could put a major 3 in, and that would be an E note. Maybe bring this up to the E, and this up. That's already on the C. And then I think what I might do instead of, because I don't have, well, I got the snare going on here, but I feel like matching up with this chord on the and of 3. Now in this case, so I've been talking, 1, 3, 5, all this stuff. One of the problems with music theory is that we use the same numbers for a lot of different crap. And so with this, when I'm saying the and of 3 in this case, I'm speaking about the rhythmic value that we have here. So the and of 3 would be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And so 1 and, that's the and of 1. So this would be the 1 and 2 and 3 and the and of 3. And it can be very confusing for people when they start getting into this stuff, because it's like, okay, you were saying 3 a moment ago and you wanted me to be on the 3rd fret. Now you're saying 3 and you want me to be on the 3rd note of a scale. And now you're saying 3 and you want me to be on the 3rd beat of a measure. Music theory can get kind of wonky that way. Okay, so here we have, I think what I'm gonna do is kind of keep this nice and low and just let the left hand kind of punch us a little bit. No, so I like the idea, but I am going to do this in the upper voice, and on the right hand as well. And let's fill out the chord here. So we'll keep the F sharp for the so we've doubled the root, and actually maybe. Yeah, I think not going that low. So we'll invert that. And now let's get some rumbling going. We're gonna take the notes lower here. Let's double the root there. We'll take the B note down to here. And the G note down to here. All right, Dr. Gak, good to see you, Randy. I'm going to get some sleep. Long day at work today. Take care. Geology and Tumble. I haven't heard that for a while. Geology and Tumble, baby. Hey, Gak, thanks for stopping in. Have some good sleep tonight. Rest matters, so definitely. Hey, stop in anytime, man. Always great to see you. Have a good night, and we'll see you soon. Tell everyone over there on your end I said hi, bud. All right, so I'm just getting my voices straight. So now I basically punctuated this for 2 measures, and then I'm just going to let this organ just get a nice low rumble going. Because here we have 2 measures, measure and a half, just more than a measure and a half of an E minor chord. So I'm just going to let this ring now for that much. That'll be an 8th note. And tie that across. Let's see how that works. And I think if I then come in and I bring in another staccato chord right here, and so this is going to be another C sharp minor chord, and so bring this to, let's see, we got the E. What do I want to do with my C sharp minor E? Let's bring this. What I want in this case is for all of these notes to move. I want this to be a block chord, because I want it to really stand out, because it's going to be a staccato and then stop. So I don't want any of these notes to match up. And basically what I need here is so as I said C sharp, I meant D sharp. So I want a D sharp, and I want an F sharp, and I want an A sharp. I'm gonna put the F sharp there, and I can do another C sharp. Oh, that's, I keep saying C sharp, and it's a D sharp. That actually isn't working for me too well. Maybe I should just not punctuate that. Let's hear this. So now in this case, I don't want a block chord if I do it this way. So what can I bring across? Because if I can just bring one note across, then you're usually good. So D sharp compared to an E, compared to a B. I think if I bring this B across, I can just make this a whole note. That I can work with. And now I'm thinking punctuate for 2 measures, and then roar for 2 measures again. And that should bring us to the end of, because this should be exactly what we started with on section A, and it is. Cool. So yeah, I just need, and then it'll just be a repeat. So let's punctuate again. And I think that these rhythms are perfectly good. So now we just set them for the chord. And so we got a G major chord. So we got G, B, and D. So even though that was on a G, I'm gonna take to the B and the D there, and take this up to a G. And let's take that to the G as well. That'll work. Okay, now here we have an E minor. So E, B, and G. So go to our E. Octaves in the left hand often work pretty well. And so we can move this to a G and this to a B. Nothing difficult about that. And in this case, I think I'm actually going to move this chord over to the half. So the rhythm's going to be slightly different, but not significantly. Nothing bad happening there. Okay, so that one, so let's go in order here. I'm going to save this. Okay, so here we have a B chord. So we're going to be B, D, and F sharp. B. I'm going to leave that on the F sharp where it is. Get my B there. Let's put the F sharp here. So I'm actually doubling my 5, which is much less common, but I'm much more inclined to do that when they are the outside notes. And so then we'll put this on the 3, which will be a D note. And then here we have a G chord, so G, B, D again. You know what? I can just copy this one straight across. Turn Turn that into a half note. Let's see how that works. Okay. What do we got here? Oh, this is going to be... I'm going to try something here. It's going to go down to the tonic. Just because this can sometimes work. This is known as a pedal tone. There are a lot of different ways to do pedal tones. I got pedal tones going on all over in the guitars. I'm just going to let these upper chords just do their thing against this pedal tone in the low end here and just see if it works. Yeah, that totally works. And I think what I'm going to do here, let's see, so we got the... So now we got a fifth there. And this will allow me to bring the right hand down to where the left hand just was. And so that's a very low chord that we'll be getting there. I like it. That is what I want. Yeah. Now, one thing I got to watch for here is how this matches up with this, because I go back to an E minor chord, and I think it's going to be fine. We'll take a look at it. Rise. I'm not sure if that's Rise or Riz or Rizzy, so again, apologies to everyone for butchering your usernames or actual names. I don't know. Do I normally write progressive metal? I would say progressive is pretty much my home base. Yeah. I keep looking at that camera, and it has a camera lens on it. This is the camera I should be looking at. So yeah, progressive metal is pretty much my main thing. If I get into, doing more vocals like I was talking about earlier, I would say it would kind of be progressive power metal, that kind of stuff. Camelot, Blind Guardian type metal is kind of it's where I like to be. I really enjoy that stuff. And, I think one of the big things about being a musician is you have to be willing to find your own voice, not just as a vocalist, but as a musician. So, yeah, I'm definitely influenced by bands like Iron Maiden, Blind Guardian, Camelot that I just mentioned. I'm very hugely influenced by John Coltrane, the jazz saxophone player, in the way that I improvise. But you kind of got to see, how do I use this information? So, I know what I do as an instrumentalist. I'll be curious to see where I end up if the vocals go into the music. And I would like to see that. That's an answer I would like to have. Are there any bands that I like that are progressive? Jazz musicians. Jazz is often considered one of the more progressive types of stuff. And I'm really into like the 50s, 60s jazz. John Coltrane, who I just mentioned, is a massive influence. I can listen to Coltrane all day. Miles Davis. The album Kind of Blue by Miles Davis, which also has John Coltrane on it, is, in my opinion, the greatest album of all time. Of all genres, inclusive, that's the one. That's massive. As far as more progressive metal style bands, Camelot's not as progressive. They're kind of straight ahead power metal. You hear a bit more progressive stuff out of Blind Guardian. There, I'm really big on. Of course, Dream Theater. I like Dream Theater a lot. Let me just open up my music thing, because I'm kind of drawing a blank on bands right now, and I shouldn't be. But let me just take a look at some other stuff here. Of course, some of the older stuff, like the band Yes. Gentle Giant has some great stuff. That stuff's all awesome. Let's just get into my metal here. Let's see. I'm seeing all these bands that I really like, but I mean, a lot of these. Between the Buried and Me, they're good. I don't listen to a ton of their stuff. Beyond Twilight and Beyond, they got some pretty interesting progressive stuff. They're not terribly well known, but they had some cool stuff. Rush, of course, I'm a huge Rush fan. That stuff's awesome. Demons and Wizards really isn't very progressive. It's straight ahead power metal. And I guess it also is going to depend on how we define progressive. So the way I typically define progressive is where you have music that tends to continue away from where it started. And it might come back at times, but you've got kind of a standard song structure in, if we just look at standard pop and rock in most metal songs, you've kind of got an intro, verse, chorus, break, chorus, outro, right? And so when you have, the 3 or 4 parts like that, that's what I think of as kind of less progressive. Where when you have 8 parts, 12 parts, 20 parts, that's much more progressive. So the more parts you have, the more likely I am to consider it progressive. And even if you do have repetition of parts, a lot of my music has repetition of parts, but they don't always get the same treatment. And so like when I do a standard rock show in these streets, tomorrow night I'll just do a normal kind of rock show. My guitar solos will be different every time I play the A section of a song. My solos are going to be different. Every time I play that song, the solos are going to be different because it's all improvised. And so improvisation can also lend a lot to the progressive nature that we're talking about. Falconer has some good progressive stuff. Some of that, and again, some of that's more just straight ahead metal. For Selena and Sin, they're not terribly progressive. Green Carnation, dude. Particularly the song Light of Day, Day of Darkness, which is 1 hour and 6 seconds long. That is progressive stuff right there. And they've got some cool stuff. Symphony X, of course, very progressive. And there again, like a lot of these bands will go back and forth being more or less progressive. Magellan, very progressive. Now, I got turned on to Magellan with the album Symphony for a Misanthrope, which is progressive metal. And I then started listening to other music by Magellan, and they're really good. A lot of Magellan fans didn't like Symphony for a Misanthrope because it was metal. And they don't think of Magellan as being a metal band. They're progressive, I would say, in most of their work. But a lot of their fans were not ready for them to do metal, but they did it really well. And that's a cool album. What else do we got going on here? Some Nightwish's stuff-ish, progressive-ish. Definitely not Ozzy. He's not progressive. I mean, all of these bands I like. Pantera definitely was not progressive, but they were freaking awesome. I saw Pantera live in 97, probably. 97, 98, they were leading in for Black Sabbath. So it was really cool that I got to see Pantera before Dime was murdered. That was great. Queensryche is, particularly their earlier stuff like Operation Mindcrime. Mindcrime was kind of where I fell in love with oh gosh, what's the term I'm looking for? The album where it tells a story. The whole album is one story, like Pink Floyd's The Wall. Is that concept album? Queensryche is where I fell in love with concept albums. They've got some reasonably progressive stuff, particularly in their early work. Yeah, I mean, Savior Machine. I don't know. Savior Machine is one of the very few Christian bands that I really, really like, and they don't do Christian metal like other Christian metal bands. They do it right. Silent Opera, they're a little progressive. I have heard of Sleep Token, yeah, and I was just recently introduced to Sleep Token, and I gotta say I'm neutral. Clearly, good musicians. A little tired of the whole, oh look, I'm wearing a mask, you don't know who I am thing. Some of it feels a little contrived. It is good music, and I don't want it to sound like I'm putting them down, but the overarching, we worship the god sleep thing, no one knows who we are, look at us, we're so mysterious. It feels a little gimmicky to me. I like the music. I definitely like the music. Of course, people could say the same thing about me. I dress nice and wear a tie and I play heavy metal. It's totally a gimmick. There's nothing wrong with gimmicks. I feel like it's like Slipknot did it, so we're doing it. And that may be disingenuous on my part because I don't know a lot about them. Definitely good music though. So Sleep Token is cool. I wish them nothing but the best. But I don't know. Maybe if I got to know their stuff a little bit better, I would feel a little less of that it was a little less of a gimmick. And so I don't know. Their popularity, I mean, hey, obviously they're doing something right because they have really jumped fast in their popularity. And the music, like I said, the music is absolutely good. So yeah, I really don't want it to sound like a put down. Okay, so I'm just kind of back in here. All I did here was I copy and pasted that first part over. And I've got one note here that's just going to cross right over, and that makes that work perfectly. And I don't know, maybe you are a member of Sleep Token because you're one of the mysterious ones, and I just made a total jerk out of myself. That is absolutely possible. So now that I have done that, now I know that anywhere that I repeat the A section, this will occur again. So now I will copy in what I just did and just take it to the other A sections, of which there are 2. And you know, Ghost, I really like the band Ghost. They also did the whole, they didn't wear masks, but no one knows who we are. So, I felt the same way about Ghost and I really like Ghost now, but I felt they were very gimmicky at first because it's like, okay, yeah, we've never seen that before. The whole mask thing is and that's perfectly fair. When I first heard them, they really stood out to me because let me read this properly. Sometimes I can read English. They really stood out to me because of how good they were able to blend music. And that is absolutely their strong point. The way they go from like an R&B feel to a metal feel to a more pop sensibility, they do that really well. You know, like another thing, I'm asked occasionally about the band Tool, who are obviously very well known. They've done very well. I'm not a fan of Tool. I like Tool. I'm not a fan of Tool. I feel like they have a formula and it works. And I do feel their music is formulaic. Some hardcore Tool fans get very upset when you say that Tool's music is formulaic. But you can point to a lot of things where they're doing the same Tool thing. My music also has formulaic stuff. I mean, some people are like, that sounds very Mad Poet-esque. That sounds like something you would have written. So, I mean, it's not really possible, I think, to get away from that. But at the same time, I will absolutely grant that Tool, the way they use weird time signature, very few bands have ever used odd time signatures as well as Tool. They are giants in that arena. Rush is one of the few bands that rivals Tool in how well they actually use weird time signatures. So I mean, it's like, I mean, they are that, and to me, to put another band on the level of Rush, that's saying something. So yeah, that's a big compliment. All right, so I'm just kind of looking at this now. I want to see, so in this part of our sheet music, basically where you see the dark gray areas down here, those are parts of the song that they've got notes in them. And so you're basically seeing this song here. And so I still need to, I got my break section, the intro, and the section C, or as I like to call it, the C section, are still going to need a little orchestration work. So, and there again, I'm going to have to decide, maybe I'm going to put a piano in there. Maybe I'm going to put a harpsichord in there. Maybe I'll extend the string section out to that. Or there's one more A section here that I need to paste into. But this was fun. And I think I'm going to paste this A section in. And then it's probably time for me to put on the running clothes and go for a jog. Oh, and the A section, I'll have to paste that in later because I have to open that stuff back up for it. But yeah, that was a good little addition to the song. Really pleased with the way that organ came out. I think that's going to help out quite nicely. And again, thank you everybody. I got some new followers today. Got some new people in chat, some new viewers. Greatly appreciated. Always have a fun time doing this. Tomorrow, not sure which albums I'm going to be playing. Probably will be playing 2 full albums in the full show tomorrow. And we'll see where that leads us to. It should be a good time. We'll get the smoke machine going, get the lights flashing, and make it happen like that. Oh, and I just, Jumpy on Livespace, I just noticed that you are in the chat. Apologies if you've been there for a while. Oh, and Rise, thanks for the follow on kick. Thank you very much. Jumpy, apologies if you were there for a while and I didn't see you. I just now looked at my Livespace chat. Don't think I've seen you here before either. For those who don't know, Livespace is a beta program for a new streaming platform, and it's been awesome. I was one of the very fortunate to be one of the very first beta programmers. I've been on there for about 8 months, and so I've streamed on that more than most people. Do It Pruitt and I were the kind of the main OG beta testers on there. Always lurking and loving your streams. You're bringing me a burst of energy. Oh, that's great to hear. Thank you very much. Jumpy, I don't know if I followed you yet, so I'm going to go find your channel and make sure I'm following you. I'm trying to follow as many people on here as I can. I am following you. Good. And apologies, I have not yet seen one of your streams, but I will try to catch you when I can. And appreciate the great compliment there. Yeah, Pruitt's fun. He's a nice guy, and he and I have gotten to know each other a little bit just through being beta testers on there. So, but I'm going to call that a day. It's running time. I got about an hour and a half of light left here, so should be able to get in 4 or 5 miles at least. We might do 6 today. We'll see how that goes. Well, it's been a blast. Until next time, as always,